It is 1362. Two armies face each other on the open plains of what is now Ukraine. Roughly equal in number, both armed with deadly composite bows, fast-moving archers, and years of battlefield experience. On paper, it should have been a draw. Yet one army would shock the other, turning identical tools into total domination. The other side never stood a chance. What gave them the edge? This is Great History, where we explore the choices, tactics, and decisions that shaped empires. Hit subscribe and join us as we uncover the hidden strategies, ingenious maneuvers, and moments that changed the course of history. It is spring, and the Teutonic Knights are on a winning streak. The fortress of Kaunas in Lithuania has fallen after a brutal siege. Its walls, once formidable, have crumbled under the combined weight of siege engines and heavily armored infantry. Algirdas, the new Grand Duke of Lithuania, son of Gediminas, and his brother Kęstutis, arrive too late. From the surrounding hills, they watch helplessly as smoke rises from the city, banners are torn, and looters move freely through the streets. The sight is a harsh reminder: Lithuania's western borders are under constant threat, and simply holding territory is not enough. Expansion and strategic advantage are necessary for survival. Wars are never just about defense. They are about resources, manpower, and positioning. Lithuania needed new lands, and the fractured principalities of the southern Rus offered a rare opportunity. The Golden Horde, which nominally controlled these regions, was in turmoil. After the death of Khan Berdi Beg in 1359, the Horde entered what historians call the Great Troubles, a 2-decade period of fragmentation, infighting, and political instability. Instead of a unified empire, the Golden Horde became a patchwork of rival factions. Keldi Beg tried to maintain control over Sarai, Bulat Timur dominated Volga Bulgaria, and Abdullah asserted authority in Crimea. Each pursued their own interests, and none could pay attention to Lithuania advancing from the north. Algirdas saw this as a window of opportunity. He moved quickly into the southern Rus principalities, territories officially under the Crimean Ulus and controlled by Mamai, one of the most influential Mongol warlords of the time. Mamai, preoccupied with struggles over the Horde's capital and other rivals, had no armies to counter Lithuania's gradual encroachment. The advance was swift and efficient. Cities and towns like Chernihiv, Bryansk, Novgorod-Seversky, Severki, Stadib, and Pereyaslav fell under Lithuanian control. It was a campaign that resembled a methodical administrative takeover rather than a bloody conquest, with implicit threats ensuring cooperation without large-scale destruction. Algirdas understood the importance of loyal governance. He placed family members in charge of the newly acquired territories, securing both authority and continuity. Tax collectors loyal to the Golden Horde were removed, and immediate construction projects began, fortresses and castles rising to consolidate control. One such project, Smotric Castle, was built on a river, while Bakakota Fortress claimed a hill once home to quiet monasteries. Even local traditions were harnessed creatively. A hunting trip by the Karajot brothers led to the founding of Kamyts-Podilsky, built on an island where deer had been herded. Lithuania was leaving a permanent imprint on the land, blending practical strategy with local culture. Yet Algirdas did not rely solely on force. He employed a policy of soft power, respecting local Orthodox Christian traditions and maintaining existing governance systems. Byzantine customs and local rulers were integrated into the administration, allowing inhabitants to preserve their faith, language, and traditions. This approach strengthened Lithuanian legitimacy and earned the region a reputation for benevolent rule. Historians later referred to this period as the era when the Grand Duchy of Lithuania became a silk empire, not because of trade, but because of its smooth and subtle method of governing. Meanwhile, Mamai, having secured his position in Crimea, returned to find Lithuania comfortably settled in southern Rus. He had essentially come back from a political maneuver to discover a new power firmly established in what he considered his domain. Furious yet pragmatic, he realized he could not launch a fresh campaign against the Lithuanians without risking his already fragile authority. Algirdas extended a pragmatic offer. Lithuania could retain the territories but continue to pay tribute to the Golden Horde. Mamai, constrained by internal divisions and external threats, reluctantly accepted, allowing Lithuania to solidify its position. By mid-1362, Lithuania had been transformed. No longer a northern duchy reacting defensively to Teutonic advances, it had become a regional powerhouse. Trade routes now flowed freely through Podolia to the Black Sea, and Kiev, the historic heart of Rus, was firmly under Lithuanian control. Moscow and other neighboring powers observed these moves with concern, recognizing a rising rival with growing influence. Algirdas continued to expand, using a combination of diplomacy, careful administration, and military force to strengthen Lithuania's reach and set the stage for a shift in Eastern European geopolitics. Mamai returned from Crimea expecting to reinforce his authority, only to find Lithuania firmly settled in southern Rus lands. The presence of a rising power directly in his sphere of influence was infuriating. Yet, even his fury had limits. Mamai faced a fractured empire, internal rebellions, and rival claimants who threatened Sarai, the Golden Horde's capital. Opening a new front against Lithuania was too risky. Algirdas, understanding both the strengths and limitations of his adversary, offered a practical compromise. Lithuania would keep its newly acquired territories, but tribute would continue to flow to the Horde. It was a pragmatic agreement. Mamai, though displeased, had no alternative, and he accepted. This decision marked a turning point. By the spring of 1362, Lithuania had shifted from a northern defensive duchy into a major regional power. Previously threatened by the Teutonic Knights in the west, it now had a secure foothold in the south. The capture of strategic towns and cities in southern Rus created a buffer zone that would protect the Lithuanian heartlands while opening new trade routes to the Black Sea. Roads and rivers connected the new territories, allowing both commerce and military mobilization. Kiev, the medieval jewel of Rus, now symbolized Lithuanian authority. It was more than a city, it represented influence, prestige, and control over a historically significant center. With these victories, Algirdas was no longer just defending territory. He was actively shaping the political landscape of Eastern Europe. He installed family members in key positions across the conquered lands. Trusted brothers and nephews managed towns and fortresses, ensuring a strong administrative presence. Fortifications such as Smotric Castle on a riverbank and Bakakota Fortress on a strategic hill reinforced Lithuania's hold. Even urban planning and settlement initiatives reflected strategic foresight. A hunting trip by the Karajot brothers led to the founding of Kamyts-Podilsky, a town built on an island where deer had been gathered, showing how military, administrative, and cultural actions combined to consolidate power. Algirdas' approach was sophisticated. Instead of imposing forced conversions or disrupting local culture, he respected Orthodox Christian traditions and Byzantine governance structures. The local population could retain their faith, alphabet, and leadership under Lithuanian oversight. This approach created a reputation for benevolent rule and stability, earning Lithuania respect in the region. Historians would later describe this as the Grand Duchy's Silk Empire period, highlighting a strategy of subtle, firm governance rather than harsh coercion. The geopolitical impact was immediate. Moscow and other principalities watched Lithuania's expansion with caution. The duchy had established itself as a regional powerhouse capable of influencing the southern Rus principalities and challenging the Golden Horde's traditional dominance. Algirdas' political acumen ensured that the territories remained loyal while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. By combining diplomacy, local integration, and military presence, he stabilized newly acquired regions in a way that was both efficient and sustainable. At the same time, Algirdas' focus was turning to strategic military targets. The southern principalities were only the beginning. His next objective was a critical fortress near the Sanuka River, a tributary of the southern Bug. Known by different names to different cultures, Jabgu to the Turks, Sinvadi to the Rus, and Melny Vadi to the Lithuanians, this stronghold would later give the battle its name, the Battle of Blue Waters. Controlling this region was crucial for consolidating Lithuania's southern frontier and securing influence over the trade and communication routes leading to the Black Sea. The Tatar force sent to oppose him was a patchwork army led by regional warlords rather than a centralized horde army. Abdallah Kutlug Bey, Hajibey, and a commander known as Demetrius led the troops, which numbered between 10,000 and 20,000. Skilled and mobile, they relied heavily on mounted archery and steppe-style tactics. Yet, they lacked cohesion, and their command structure was fragmented. Lithuania, in contrast, brought a flexible army of 20,000 to 25,000 soldiers, combining infantry, light and heavy cavalry, and a variety of ranged units including archers and crossbowmen. While both armies shared steppe-style traditions, Lithuania had learned from prior encounters and understood the importance of strategic positioning and combined arms coordination. Infantry formed a sturdy core, while cavalry provided both mobility and shock power. Ranged units supported the main forces, capable of both rapid attacks and sustained volleys. This diversity of force types, combined with careful administration and disciplined formations, positioned Lithuania for a decisive engagement that could reshape the regional balance of power. The composite bow was the signature weapon of steppe warriors, and its mastery defined the Tatars' battlefield dominance. Short, powerful, and perfectly suited for mounted archery, it allowed warriors to strike rapidly, accurately, and continuously while moving at full speed. Over centuries, steppe nomads had perfected its design, creating a weapon that combined mobility, power, and durability. The Tatars wielded it with near superhuman skill. Entire armies could launch waves of arrows in coordinated volleys, striking at enemy formations before they could respond. Their style of warfare resembled a medieval blitzkrieg: strike fast, strike hard, and never stop moving. The bow itself was a marvel of engineering. Constructed from layers of wood, horn, and sinew, each material had a specific role. Horn on the belly handled compression, sinew on the back handled tension, and the wooden core held the components together. Every detail mattered: the type of wood, the quality of horn, even the glue affected performance. Small design choices, curved tips, reflex shape, string bridges, maximized arrow speed, range, and penetration. The bows were compact, allowing archers to maneuver easily on horseback, twist their bodies mid-gallop, and shoot in multiple directions. Training started in childhood, and expert riders could fire accurately while retreating or performing complex maneuvers, including the famed Parthian shot. Lithuanian bows, while effective, lacked some of these refinements. Their tips were often less sharply curved, many lacked string bridges, and draw weights were sometimes lower. As a result, their arrows flew slower, penetrated armor less effectively, and could not match the high-volume fire of Tatar archers. In a direct contest of speed and range, the Tatars held the advantage. Their arrows were lighter, allowing rapid fire, though they sacrificed some armor penetration for rate of shooting. The steppe army relied on these factors to disrupt enemy formations, wound horses, and gradually break morale. Yet Lithuania had prepared a countermeasure. The heavy crossbow, often overlooked in discussions of medieval warfare, was a weapon of devastating power. Unlike composite bows, which depended on human strength, the crossbow used mechanical aids, cranakins, windlasses, and other tensioning devices, to store immense energy. Draw weights exceeded 1,000 pounds, allowing bolts to release with energies far surpassing the strongest composite bow. While slower to fire, the heavy crossbow excelled at armor penetration. Its bolts could pierce leather, mail, and even moderate plate, capable of taking down riders and horses alike. On the battlefield, this turned the tables. Lithuania could blunt the Tatars' speed and firepower with sheer kinetic force. Algirdas positioned his army in a carefully planned formation near the Senuka River. A crescent-shaped line hugged the riverbank, designed to absorb incoming attacks while preventing encirclement, a tactic steppe cavalry often relied upon. The infantry formed the compact core, shields raised and spears ready, bracing against the first storm of Tatar arrows. Cavalry units flanked the formation, ready to exploit any gaps. Crossbowmen were placed strategically within the crescent, primed to unleash volleys against exposed enemies at close to medium range. The idea was simple but brilliant: force the Tatars into direct confrontation where their mobility would be limited, and where Lithuania's heavy cavalry, infantry, and crossbowmen could dominate. When the battle began, the Tatars executed their standard opening maneuver. Mounted archers charged, releasing waves of arrows aimed at the flanks and center of the Lithuanian formation. Their arrows flew in high arcs, striking with speed and accuracy, designed to create chaos, break morale, and soften the line for a decisive charge. But the Lithuanian soldiers did not waver. Compact formations held firm, shields interlocked, spears lowered. The first storm of arrows caused minimal casualties, and the anticipated disruption failed to materialize. Forced into close combat, the Tatars faced the heavy crossbowmen. When the enemy was committed, bolts flew with lethal precision, striking armored riders and horses. Unlike arrows, the bolts carried enough energy to penetrate lamellar armor and padded mail, instantly incapacitating targets. Soldiers dropped in one precise motion, creating shockwaves that rippled through the ranks. Psychological impact was immediate. The Tatars, famed for their discipline, were unprepared for such concentrated, armor-piercing fire. Units broke under pressure, key leaders fell, and the army's cohesion began to unravel. This was not mere luck. Algirdas and his commanders had carefully studied the limitations of steppe tactics and understood how to counter speed with firepower, mobility with disciplined formations. The combination of infantry, cavalry, and heavy crossbowmen allowed Lithuania to absorb the Tatar initial advantage, neutralize their mobility, and exploit exposed troops at critical moments. By turning a potential disadvantage, the slower, less numerous army, into a strategic advantage, Lithuania ensured that the Battle of Blue Waters would be remembered as a turning point in Eastern European warfare. The moment the crossbows struck, everything changed. Bolts tore through lamellar armor, slashed riders off their mounts, and felled horses with devastating efficiency. The psychological impact was immediate. Tatars, renowned for their discipline and ability to conduct complex battlefield maneuvers, were unprepared for such focused and lethal fire. The chaos spread quickly. Units that had been holding formation wavered, officers fell, and communication broke down across the lines. Soldiers who were used to coordinated movement now faced a new reality. The Lithuanian army could combine resilience, armor-piercing fire, and disciplined formations to counter even the most mobile cavalry. A sudden retreat began. Tatars, once masters of the feigned withdrawal, turned into disorganized clusters of riders fleeing the battlefield. Some abandoned bows and arrows, others tried to outrun the deadly crossbow bolts. Horses panicked, dragging men in their wake. Entire wings of the Tatar force collapsed as soldiers scattered in all directions. Casualties were heavy, and even those who survived the initial volleys faced relentless pressure from the advancing Lithuanian infantry and cavalry. What should have been a controlled tactical withdrawal turned into a rout. This collapse was not accidental. Algirdas had positioned his forces deliberately to force the Tatars into direct confrontation. His crescent-shaped formation absorbed the initial arrow storm and prevented the steppe cavalry from encircling the Lithuanian line. Crossbowmen waited patiently, striking at the precise moment when the Tatar formations were exposed and committed. The combination of careful positioning, disciplined troops, and mechanical firepower allowed the Lithuanians to exploit the weaknesses of a traditionally fast-moving army. The heavy crossbow bolts were devastatingly effective. Whereas composite arrows could wound lightly armored troops, the crossbow's energy penetrated padding, mail, and lamellar, instantly neutralizing key soldiers. Horses, essential to the Tatars' mobility and combat style, were taken down as bolts struck vital points. Riders were thrown from their mounts, their coordination disrupted. The resulting confusion amplified the psychological impact. Fear spread, morale collapsed, and what had begun as a calculated advance by the Tatars became a desperate scramble for survival. Even the leadership of the Tatar army could not maintain order. Key commanders fell to the Lithuanian fire, leaving the remaining forces without guidance. Coordination, which had once been the hallmark of steppe warfare, disintegrated. The Tatars' famed discipline, honed over decades of steppe combat, could not withstand the combination of concentrated crossbow fire, disciplined formations, and a sudden, focused assault. The battle, which had seemed evenly matched in the open plains, became a decisive victory for Lithuania. This moment demonstrated the power of adaptation and technology in medieval warfare. Algirdas understood that speed and mobility alone could be countered with disciplined formations and concentrated firepower. By combining infantry, heavy cavalry, and crossbowmen in a synchronized strategy, he transformed the battlefield. What the Tatars relied upon, their famed horse archers and rapid volleys, was rendered ineffective by careful positioning and weapon choice. Blue Waters was not simply a victory of numbers or courage, it was a triumph of strategic insight, innovation, and timing. In the aftermath, the Tatars' retreat spread like wildfire across the battlefield. Lithuanian forces pressed forward, taking advantage of the disarray. Entire Tatar units were neutralized, casualties were severe, and surviving forces withdrew in chaos. The battle had effectively shattered the Tatar ability to project power in southern Rus for the immediate future. Lithuania, once a defensive northern duchy, had now proven itself a dominant military and political force in the region. The Battle of Blue Waters would be remembered not just for the clash of armies but for the lessons it taught: understanding your enemy, combining weapons with disciplined tactics, and exploiting technological advantages can turn a seemingly even fight into a decisive victory. Lithuania had achieved all three, setting the stage for the consolidation of southern Rus territories and securing a strategic foothold that would influence Eastern European politics for decades. With the Tatar army shattered and fleeing the field, Lithuania had won more than a battle. It had secured its southern frontier and established itself as a dominant regional power. Algirdas and his commanders wasted no time consolidating their gains. Fortresses were strengthened, towns reorganized, and administrative systems implemented to ensure long-term control. Local populations were allowed to maintain their traditions, orthodox faith, and governance structures, creating stability and loyalty without relying solely on force. This blend of military might and careful governance set a precedent for Lithuanian expansion, conquest without unnecessary oppression. Trade routes through Podolia and toward the Black Sea flourished under Lithuanian protection. Markets reopened, and the movement of goods, ideas, and people strengthened the duchy's economy. Kiev, once a symbolic city of the Rus, became a hub of administration, culture, and commerce under Algirdas' oversight. The city's population, accustomed to decades of Mongol influence, now found themselves under a regime that combined firm authority with respect for local traditions. It was a governance model that balanced power with pragmatism, ensuring loyalty while fostering prosperity. The victory at Blue Waters sent shockwaves through the region. Moscow, which had been observing Lithuanian expansion with growing unease, realized that a formidable rival had emerged. Lithuania now possessed the military, political, and economic tools to challenge the Golden Horde and influence neighboring principalities. Algirdas' campaigns in subsequent years, including operations reaching toward the Kremlin between 1368 and 1372, demonstrated that Lithuania's rise was no accident. Strategic foresight, disciplined troops, and innovative weapon deployment had created a state capable of shaping Eastern European geopolitics for generations. Blue Waters also showcased the effectiveness of combined arms tactics. By integrating infantry, heavy cavalry, and crossbowmen into a cohesive system, Lithuania countered the speed and flexibility of the Tatars' steppe warfare. The heavy crossbow, in particular, proved decisive. While composite bows offered speed and volume, they struggled against armor and concentrated formations. The crossbow delivered lethal energy capable of piercing armor, taking down horses, and neutralizing key soldiers. When synchronized with disciplined formations, it transformed the battlefield, turning Tatar strengths into vulnerabilities. In the wake of the battle, Lithuania secured more than territory. It gained influence, respect, and a long-term foothold in southern Rus. The duchy's reputation as a wise and powerful ruler spread, and Algirdas' policies set a model for governance that blended force with diplomacy. Regions under Lithuanian control saw stability, economic growth, and cultural integration. Trade and communication routes thrived, towns developed, and new settlements, like Kamyts-Podilsky, reinforced Lithuanian presence in previously contested lands. Historically, the Battle of Blue Waters marked a turning point in the balance of power in Eastern Europe. Lithuania's victory weakened the Golden Horde's control, secured key southern territories, and established the duchy as a rising power capable of challenging both the Mongols and neighboring principalities. The battle highlighted the importance of strategic planning, technological adaptation, and disciplined execution in medieval warfare. Algirdas had studied the limitations of his enemy, deployed his forces intelligently, and leveraged weapons like the heavy crossbow to maximum effect, ensuring that Lithuania's rise was both immediate and sustainable. By the end of 1362, Lithuania had transformed from a northern duchy under threat from the Teutonic Knights into a dominant regional power with influence stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. Blue Waters was not merely a battlefield victory, it was a statement. It demonstrated the importance of innovation, preparation, and understanding one's enemy. It showed that even when faced with a traditionally superior mobile force, careful planning, disciplined formations, and smart use of technology could secure decisive success. 4 centuries to come, Lithuania's expansion, governance, and military triumphs in the south would leave a lasting legacy in Eastern European history.